In the luxurious underground headquarters of the Patriots Council, Gus Blue sat tied to a chair. Around him sat the members of the Patriots Council, including Mayor George Barrington, former Vice Mayor Evan Groverfield, Principal Jordan of Freedom Miller High School, Sheriff Adam Porter, Juanita Volio, and Toby Winters. The atmosphere in this meeting was far more tense than it had been in previous meetings. This was for a variety of reasons. A few faces were missing. Jake Clark had betrayed the Patriots Council by working with the Novus Ordo Seclorum to secretly unleash a trap upon the council. It was this trap unleashed at Harry Root's strip club, the Donna, that Commissioner Klein of Fero lost his life. Eleanor Malco was kidnapped, and the chances of finding her seemed to be very low. Gus Blue's presence made the situation all the more peculiar. With the exception of Toby and Principal Jordan, Gus Blue's existence was a completely new concept. But Toby knew he was important. Dominus told the scientist that Gus Blue was the key to everything. What that meant was still unclear, but it was clear Gus' importance was no bluff. 4. Toby could look back on the last 2 months, and everywhere he looked, Gus Blue was there. But why would a 15-year-old kid be so important? Especially one as weak and non-threatening as Gus. And a more important question was, how could he help Toby and the Patriots Council? Not only did Toby and Gus hate each other, but it was clear that the Novus Ordo Seclorum had brainwashed the kid. Toby was livid and wanted the little prick to be punished for his actions, but Mayor George Barrington, ever intelligent and restrained, told Toby to forbid from talking. They needed to get information, because if they didn't, the city would be doomed. Well, Gus Blue. Barrington greeted with a smile. I hope you have found yourself comfortable in our humble headquarters. Better than the NOS, I presume. Gus shook around with anger. The Novus Ordo Seclorum doesn't fucking tie me to a chair. No. They just kidnap you a bunch of times, and show up at Jordan's school, and put you in a white van, Barrington quipped. I deserved it. Bitchington. Gus yelled. You all fucking suck. Well, at least we don't have a file on a 15-year-old kid, Barrington said. It took a while to dig up your records from Freedom Miller. But now that we have them, let's have a little discussion. The room seemed to become darker as the mayor pulled his chair closer to Gus. With a sinister grin, George Barrington prepared to dig deep into the enigma that was Gus Blue. The rest of the Patriots Council seemed prepared, but Toby had no clue what was going on. He was still new to the organization, so he did not blend in with the other members and their organized cohesion. He did not smell blood in the water. Barrington did. This file tells me you were born on August 1, 2007, at 5:10 a.m. to 1. Veronica and John Blue. You have one older brother named Vinnie Blue, 6 years your elder. You currently live with your brother after your parents died in an anarchist attack in April. Is this all correct? Obviously. Bitchington, Gus scowled. No need to be so crude. Mr. Blue, Barrington said. I'm George Barrington, and I am here to help you. I am here to stop your oppressors. And no matter what you believe currently, those oppressors are the Novus Ordo Seclorum. Gus simply stared Barrington down. He was filled with so much rage and hatred that he could not be bothered to form a response. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? Barrington patted Gus on the shoulder. At what point did everything in your life change? Because we've looked back since April 4th, and you've been there almost every step of the way. We need to ask you where you were in every step of this pyramid." Gus continued to stare. He did not blink. Toby wanted to warn the Patriots Council that any further interrogation was futile, but their eagerness caused Toby to doubt his own doubtfulness. Perhaps this meeting could end in success. But even if it does, success is not his. Barrington gave a hand gesture to his counsel, giving the go-ahead to join him in the most important interrogation. "Where were you on April 4th? Principal Jordan asked. "I was at your school, idiot," Gus said. "It was just after. I was accused of cheating on my algebra test. But you proved your innocence, Principal." Jordan said. "I'm just wondering why you were kidnapped by an obese man. That man is your god," Gus screamed. "Praise Dominus. Pro futuro, quod lucidum est, totis viribus terram. Regbimus. Nos novus ordo seclorum." "Get him out of here," Toby said. "He is a brat. It's not worth it at all." "Toby, you're smart and all, but we've got this covered," said Juanita. "What covered?" Toby asked. Sheriff Porter shushed him. "Listen. What is your association with VB, the leader of the Communists of Bencow Falls?" asked Barrington. "I have no association, bitch," said Gus truthfully. "But I have great respect. And to what is your association with the DuPont family, and its heiress, Alia Marie DuPont?" asked Sheriff Porter. "She is an interesting character, and a beautiful and bright young woman, unlike you," Gus said, gesturing towards Juanita. Barrington continued. "Do you have anything to do with the death of Sheriff Porter's daughter, Shannon? Is Alia the one to cause it?" "No. I was the one to cause it," Gus said confidently, with no remorse. "Toby helped me." The room fell silent as the eyes of the Patriots Council turned to Toby. He felt his heart beating faster and faster. The air was suffocating. There was no escape from it. His worst fears had come to fruition. He had been exposed. While he was tricked, he was the one to set the wire on fire, causing the barnhouse to burn. He set Shannon Porter on fire. "If you think that is bad," Gus said, smiling. "Toby Winters was involved in those BBO attacks. I wasn't even killing people. Toby literally was killing people. Harry Roots literally said he killed Joshua Malco, and his son Richard too. It was honestly awesome, until he became a traitorous loser." The room grew even tighter as a far worse allegation was levied upon Toby. This one was true as well. Toby was coerced, but he was not tricked this time. This was his fault. And he deserved every bit of the scorn that was going to come to him. Suddenly, former Vice Mayor Evan Groverfield charged Toby, and kicked him. Though Groverfield was old, he still managed to make him wince in pain. "After you accused Thomas Clark, I knew you were a crook," Groverfield yelled. "You're worse than Jake Clark." "This is ridiculous," Toby said. "Gus is lying. I never did these things." Barrington sighed. "Tase him." Sheriff Porter walked up to Toby and tased him in the stomach. He fell to the floor, groaning in agony. Barrington walked over to him and spoke. "See, I called this meeting for 2 reasons. First and foremost, I needed to erase the scum from the Patriots Council. You are much like Jake, without his cunning. You are just an 18-year-old kid who thinks he's some genius. But you're not. You are simply irrelevant." Gus began to laugh maniacally as Toby looked up at George Barrington in fear. "I Never bought your story, Mr. Winters, Barrington said. Dominus recruited me, but he never made me do anything. Seriously, in what reality does that make any sense? I've been tracking you since the beginning. I've noticed the disappearances. I know this was a lie. And now that I know who Dominus is, I know you are a scum. You killed the Malcos. You killed Shannon Porter and 10 others. It is time for you to suffer the consequences of your actions. Perhaps we are getting a little ahead of ourselves, Juanita warned. George Barrington continued to pace. Jake was right. There was chemistry. But your fellow scientist will be punished severely. But first, I must show Mr. Winters the second reason I called this meeting. But before Barrington could continue talking, the notorious assassin Bloodshot walked into the room. He was limping and very injured from his fight with Harry Roots. The mayor was not expecting his presence at the meeting. He gave a confused look to Toby. I told you to stay upstairs in the museum and wait for the ambulance to give you medical treatment, said Sheriff Porter. We have important business we are attending to currently. Bloodshot looked at the floor where Toby was laying in pain from his tazzing. He paused and then drew his guns. What's going on here? Asked Bloodshot. None of your concern, said Sheriff Porter, drawing out his gun. Toby Winters here is a murderer. Now trust us and scurry off. I would never trust the government, said Bloodshot. I am an anarchist revolutionary. You are just as bad as the Novus Ordo Seclorum. You are outnumbered, said Principal Jordan. But you are all weak, said Bloodshot as he put his earbuds in. Deprived of movement, you lack true might. You have no skills, nor do you have talent, Barrington said. If you think you can challenge the Patriots, you'll have as good luck as the Rams in 2019. You're wrong, Bloodshot said. I got thick. Barrington and Sir Bloodshot fired his guns to the beat of the music. Sheriff Porter tried to fire back, but his efforts were futile. Nicholas was too agile for the police system. The other Patriots Council members, consisting of George Barrington, Evan Groverfield, Principal Jordan, and Juanita Volio, ducked behind chairs to avoid the blasts of Bloodshot. Sheriff Porter narrowly dodged all of Bloodshot's bullets, but the middle-aged man was running out of energy. Only the memory of his daughter gave him the power to keep going. But before the climax of the battle could be reached, the headquarters of the Patriots Council started to become submerged by a watery substance. But it wasn't just any watery substance, it was Wintonium. A voice called out from above, who knew building an underground base would make your little organization become susceptible to getting flooded by my favorite element. It was hard to recognize the voice for Toby and Bloodshot, but for the others it became instantly clear who it was. Jake Clark. Yeah. That's right. Jake's voice was smug. It's your favorite mayor's gay younger brother. Even though I literally have a wife and 2 sons, I guess I'm gay. I'm not gay. You will pay for this, Jake Clark, yelled Groverfield. How are you speaking to us? Asked Juanita. I installed sound systems into this room while no one was looking, just to prepare my ultimate revenge to taunt you as you drown to death. Jake laughed. You thought you could trust me, Barrington. I've been waiting for this day ever since you slept with my wife in 1999. You will pay. The room continued to flood. Most of the Patriots Council was panicking, but not George Barrington. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Gus Blue was laughing. maniacally. This is what I was talking about. The Novus Ordo Seclorum reigns supreme. God bless Jake Clark. God bless Gus Blue. God bless God Blue. I am God Blue. I am the key. I am the God of all of you. You will all bow before me. Gus Blue broke free from his rope and began to swim towards the door, as the others were stuck in the Witanium. Something odd seemed to be happening. Gus was not affected by the Witanium. He was resistant to its effects, and he found himself easily swimming to safety. At least that degenerate is out of here, remarked Principal Jordan. How? Said Toby and Juanita at the same time in utter confusion. I am literally burning right now, punk, said Groverfield to Jake. How the hell did you find so much Wintanium to flood our base? How long have you been planning this? Since the time my brother founded this god-forsaken council. And 27 bullets later, I am the master of the Clark family. Resistance is futile, Georgie. Give in. Barrington chucked. No, my friend. I've had this planned much longer than you. And your brother did too. We found his diary and I have translated much of it. See, this is the second reason I've called this meeting. This has all been a trap. Jake was in disbelief. A trap? Yes, Jake, Barrington said. A trap. To steal your Wintanium. I know you know where Gus is at all times. I knew you knew this was our base. I know how arrogant you are. I know how bitter you are. I would never let myself get flooded. This was a trap to reveal who the Patriots Council really is. It's a trap to reveal the Great Pyramid of Benko Falls. Barrington pressed a red button on the wall and the room began to shake. The Witanium all went down a drain and the room was rising. What happened next would shock everyone in the facility. The room began to rise as if it was being pushed upwards by something below. But what was happening was there was something below, for hundreds of feet. The headquarters of the Patriots Council was merely the top of a massive pyramid that had been built underground, and now that entire pyramid was rising towards the surface. As the top of the pyramid reached the surface and broke through the ceiling of the Benko History Museum, Toby and Nicholas could see out the door. One thing they knew for certain was that they needed to escape the facility before the Great Pyramid of Benko Falls reached its maximum height. They were now enemies of both Patriots Council and the Novus Ordo Seclorum. They needed to escape the battle that was going to unfold. Nicholas looked Toby in the eyes and grabbed him. Toby yelled in panic as Bloodshot took themselves to jump out of the door. An odd sensation was felt by the scientist, one he had not felt before. He was neither terrified nor numb. It was as if he was somewhere in between. Toby knew he wouldn't die. If he had survived for so long, there was no chance that he would die now, from a mere fall. But he knew he wouldn't be okay. He knew death would be a far more pleasant ending than what fate had in store. Toby felt like in some sort of limbo. He wanted the pain to stop, but he had no way to stop it. Torture was his destiny. Almost as soon as they started falling, Bloodshot was able to grab onto a crack in the pyramid. Toby was hanging on to Nicholas for dear life, but it was a struggle. The pyramid was growing at the rate of a foot per second. Hanging on would clearly be difficult. Before Nicholas' hands wore out and the two of them fell to their death, the Great Pyramid of Benko Falls reached its maximum height. It stood at a colossally large, 500 feet, with an 800-foot width, larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. The pyramid was golden in color, but if you look closely you could see it was made of metal, of which was enriched with witanium. The pyramid was positioned at an angle that the two could walk on the pyramid, although they had to be very careful. They carefully walked their way down the pyramid, in an attempt to escape the labyrinth they had been put in. Nicholas was still very injured from their fight with Harry Roots. His face was swollen and unrecognizable, but Toby was in worse condition. He was not wearing the right clothes to climb down the pyramid, and worse of all, his mental health had reached a new low. He did appreciate Bloodshot though, his only ally in a world that hated him. "I want to thank you for defending me," Toby said. "It's what my dad taught me to do," said Nicholas. "I owe it all to him. And you owe this to me." A voice said. As if he appeared out of thin air, Mr. Dominus stood before them. He proceeded to kick Bloodshot down the pyramid. Luckily, since Bloodshot had the proper equipment, he was able to safely reach the bottom. But Toby would not be so lucky. "This is a magnificent pyramid you have here," Mr. Dominus said. Why, Toby screamed. "I don't know, Mr. Winters," Dominus said. "After I was so nice to you. After I defended you. After I tolerated your betrayals for so long, and you keep screwing me over." Toby yelled. "You're insane. You're sick." "I'm actually very healthy. A bit fat though," Dominus laughed. "Here's the deal. You'll be my student one day, but I clearly came too early. You need to graduate kindergarten with Ol. George Barrington. Then you can learn from the master. But until then, you're expelled from the numbers." "Good," Toby said. "Took you long enough." Dominus chuckled as he got up and shoved his foot in Toby's mouth. "I would get rid of that attitude. See, I'm here to do real work." So, Toby's brown eyes were wide and expressive. Those eyes begged Dominus to give him mercy. But these efforts were futile. Dominus pulled back his foot. Sayonara. In the following seconds, Toby Winter was kicked in the face by Mr. Dominus. He slid down the surface of the pyramid, all the way to the bottom. As he rolled to the bottom, his skin was being scraped and torn by the cold exterior of the pyramid. He screamed in pain, but the fall never seemed to end. When his fall to the deepest pit of hell ended, it had felt like a million years. But it was only at the bottom when the pain could be fully felt. His leg was broken. Toby had lost 3 teeth. His head was bruised and his face was torn apart. Being beaten by Harry was one thing, but falling 400 feet was far worse. Toby had landed directly on his face, meaning he was bleeding profusely from his nose, but no more than he was already bleeding from his mouth and from the scratches on his arm. The more he moved around, he realized that his jaw was broken too. And not just his jaw, but his right and left hand as well. He wondered by what curse of luck he could still be alive. But to him it was a curse of bad life. Even worse was the fact he was still conscious. He screamed into the abyss at the pain he was feeling. He could not bear it any longer. "Bloodshot!" Toby screamed. "Are you there?" No response was given. "Where are you, Bloodshot?" But he got no response once again, so he opened his eyes to look around. But he could not see. His eyes were gone. Mr. Dominus walked across the pyramid. He struggled to keep his balance. At the age of 64, he had been through his fair share of adventures and battles. But his body wasn't the same as it used to be, and ever since his wife died, he never took good care of it. As a coping mechanism, he resorted to binge eating. He particularly liked potato chips. They made him feel good. What kept Dominus balanced was the same thing that kept Dominus alive back when his plane crashed off the shore of Clifton, Ireland. It was his wisdom. The ideology of the Novus Ordo Seclorum. It was how he went from being the simple son of a hydrologist to the puppet master of the New World Order. It was power. Mr. Dominus reached the top of the Great Pyramid. He went into the open door that once was far underground. He climbed through it and stepped into the base of the Patriots' Council. In the base was a familiar face. But they haven't seen each other in 24 years. The man who stood there was alone. The other member of the Patriots' Council had been dismissed. The man had been waiting. But he was not waiting for Dominus, he was waiting for who Mr. Dominus used to be. He was waiting for his older brother. He was waiting for Jerry. For the man who stood before Dominus was his younger brother, George Barrington. George, Dominus said. Pleasure seeing you again. Well, George said with disappointment. Jerry, it's been a while, hasn't it? Dominus said. And far things have come. You are the mayor. And I am the master. George scoffed. The only thing you're a master of is faking your own death. You should be ashamed of yourself. How could you do that to your family? I want to make something remarkably clear, Dominus said. I do not lie. And I did not fake my own death. Jerry died on December 31, 1999. And I was the one who killed him. Is it not my brother I see before me? George asked. Or are you merely wearing his skin? I am not your brother. I don't think you ever were, George said. I don't think Mr. Dominus was born. He did not come into existence in 1999. It was always inside of you. And it was not your wife, Elizabeth, who made it. It was you. You will always remain the callous man you always were. It just had to be awoken. That's what Elizabeth did. And now the world pays the price. Dominus sighed. I am hurt by your assessment. I do wish I could have brought you with me. I wish you could have been my right-hand man. But I was not allowed to bring you. And good you were not. Your protection was never needed. All my life you thought as a weak and worthless creature who needed your guidance and care. When I proved you wrong when I became a senator, you made my life come crashing down. There are reasons, George, Dominus said. I cared about you then and I still do. Give your care to someone who needs it, which I'm afraid is no one, George said. I have no business with your villainous ways. I will bring peace to Bencow Falls. I will establish order and harmony and tranquility. You have no place here. You were always small-minded. Dominus chuckled. Bencow Falls is just the point of origin. The world is my playground. George rolled his eyes. You always wanted to change the world, Jerry. You got on your high horse and you are off to the races. But me, no. I look at the world on a case-by-case basis. When there are problems, I roll up my sleeves, put in the effort, and do what I can to cure our disease. George, your way of fixing the world's problems is the metaphorical equivalent of cooking someone's meal in a restaurant only one at a time. You've slowed everything down for no good reason by choosing to ignore the bigger picture. Cook the meals simultaneously to feed more people more quickly. Look at the big issues and take over from there. Fight causes, not symptoms, to end the diseases. That's why Elizabeth and I restarted the Novus Ordo Seclorum. There is a common problem and it has a common solution. That solution is obviously not you, George said. The NOS murders, rapes, and pillages the innocent civilians of this great city. Dominus growled. If you had the resources and the moral justification, you would do the same. The corrupt, adulterous, short mayor. Unlike you, I brought honor to our father and mother and the family we belong to. The Barrington family is now one of the elites of Bencow Falls, George said. But you have disgraced the name of Barrington. Wrong. I am a Miller. I changed my last name to Miller when I was married, Dominus said. But I am now Mr. Dominus. How fitting that Elizabeth's whipped slave of a husband would change his last name to hers, George joked. How many children did the ginger eat to get you to do that? How dare you insult my wife? Your dead wife. Slap. George Barrington was hit in the face by Mr. Dominus, who seethed in anger at the insults. Barrington giggled to himself. How many times did Elizabeth do that to you every day when she realized you were a submissive crybaby intellectual wannabe? Slap. Mr. Dominus was losing his greatest weapon, which was his composure. It was hard to make him angry. But George had always been Jerry's annoying little brother, so he knew how to push his buttons. But with every acknowledgement of frustration, Barrington was winning. There was no way to escape the cunning mayor. To lose patience is to lose dignity, George said. And that you have certainly lost. You filthy little brat. Dominus roared with anger as he pushed his brother onto the wall. I saved you so many times and this is how you repay me. But it doesn't matter. It's over, Georgie. The Novus Ordo Seclorum reigns supreme. You have no escape. Tell me, who or what could defeat me? Your grandson. Mr. Dominus raised an eyebrow. What? But in the more immediate moment, there is this guy with dementia who really likes ice cream. And as those words left the mayor's mouth, his phone rang. He was being called by none other than United States President Joe Biden. Barrington answered the phone. Mr. President, Barrington greeted. The tanks are there. Mr. Barrington, Joe Biden said. Now it's time for you to do your work. Kill that fat dude. Mr. Dominus looked out the open door in awe as thousands of soldiers from the United States military surrounded the Great Pyramid of Bencow Falls. Along with them, 10 high artillery tanks. It's over, Jerry, George said. You're surrounded. It's time you face justice. George, Dominus said. There will come a time when you are punished, but today is not the day. Suddenly, a helicopter pulled out to the door. In the helicopter was Gus Blue. Along with the pilot, an NOS soldier. Bitchington sucks, called out Gus. George looked in awe, but Dominus just smirked. You got to remember, George, I always have a backup plan. Mr. Dominus jumped into the helicopter and they took off away from the pyramid. While they were shot at, the three in the helicopter were able to remain unharmed. When the chaos of the situation died down, Dominus began to rethink his plan. He was winning, but not anymore. The entire U.S. military was under the thumb of George Barrington, who was likely the puppet master of Joe Biden. The tables had turned in his brother's favor. Where are we going? Gus asked. Somewhere away but still close to the action. Dominus said. You're going to train to become who you are meant to be. In the aftermath of the confrontation with his brother, and the stationing of over 90,000 troops in Bencow Falls, George Barrington summoned Sheriff Porter with a shocking Revelation. I am declaring martial law, Barrington revealed. I understand, sir. Sheriff Porter said. I'm George Barrington, said George Barrington. I know, sir, said Sheriff Porter. Why did you say that? Because I rule this city now. And I will bring order to Bencow Falls under the Patriots' Council. Everyone will chant my name. Because I will save them. Sheriff Porter gulped. Yes, you will. Adam, have you found Toby? Barrington asked. Yes. Barrington smiled. And what have you found? I have gotten reports from the army that Mr. Winters had fallen off the pyramid, said Sheriff Porter. And now he is at the bottom. Broken like Humpty Dumpty. Bring me to him. Adam Porter reluctantly nodded. He still believed in the cause of the Patriots' Council, but now he had the fear to motivate him further. They were no longer the fringe resistance. Now they were the status quo once more. They were the military overlords of Bencow Falls, and Mayor Barrington believed that not even Mr. Dominus and his minions could stop him. But the first battle won by the Patriots' Council is also a battle of much loss. Toby has been expelled and will be punished. The other members had become irrelevant cogs in the machine of the mastermind mayor. They were his slaves. But nonetheless well compensated. Toby would not be so lucky. As George Barrington walked up to Toby's broken body, he laughed. He then proceeded to kick the scientist with twisted glee. Do you know who it is? Because it looks like you're blind? Asked Mayor Barrington. Because I'm George Barrington. Why are you so cruel? Toby yelled. Have I not suffered enough already? Have I not paid for my sins with this pitiful fall? Do I not get a break? You'll never get a break from the real master, George smiled. I will reshape this town and Winternium. And you'll help me do it. But there'll be a few changes. Toby looked up. He was blind, but he knew Barrington had a most sinister face. I'm renaming Winternium to Barringtonium, in my family's honor. I'm gonna make you my slave, for every second of every minute of every hour of every day of every week of every month of every year. For the rest of your life, you are mine. Toby shook in fear. He tried to escape, but Barrington stepped on his body, causing him to yell in pain. I'll break even more bones if I have to, Mr. Winters. Because there are no more fancy cars and food for you. You have to eat broccoli every day. That is the only thing you will get to eat. You have to work all the time, no breaks. You live for me, you die for me. I will make Bencow Falls great again. And you will help me, Toby Winters. Toby continued to try to move away from the mastermind mayor, but resistance was futile. George Barrington began to laugh maniacally as he kicked Toby in the face. Is this who you really are? Asked Toby. I've been waiting to show you the real me for a long time, Toby. George Barrington laughed. Now everyone will see it. You are a monster, exclaimed Toby, with all the energy he had left. Hardly, Barrington said. I'm only human after all. You have no humanity or decency in you, yelled Toby. WHO do you think you are? I'm George Barrington.